Hello everybody and welcome to the Astroflower. Today is going to be an amazing video. We're going to be going into the technology that may be possible in the Great Pyramids of Egypt, but not just those pyramids that are found across the world. This was obviously some sort of technology that was known to ancient cultures. Now this is all tied in, this video here is tied into the live that we're going to be doing on Sunday night on the 23rd at 9 o'clock UK time, where you can ask questions. We can have a Q&A about all of this energy, and you're going to see today how far this goes. This goes right to the heart of you and how you use your energy in combination with everything that is around you. It is amazing. This is a fantastic discovery. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump in and see what's going on. So what we're looking at here to my right is the pyramid complex in Egypt. Now there's 3 pyramids and there are multitudes of reasons why there are 3 pyramids here. It is a complex. When you think about a car, you don't just think about petrol. There is also electricity that goes into it, drive shafts. There's multitudes of things that go into pressures, timing to do with how a motor works. And this is what we should be looking at when we're looking at the pyramid section across Egypt with these 3 pyramids. So we're combining a multitude of things at the same time, and we're starting to see this within the construction. So let's just have a quick look at what they've been found through radar and sonar, as it were. This is the pyramid here that you can just see up the top there, and underneath they found these sort of like columns in a way, with these spirals that are going around it. Now these spirals are reportedly that go down as far as 2 kilometers. This is what they found on the radio waves, as it were. Okay, and here is the pyramid up the top, defined by the black lines, and then inside the pyramid they've also found hidden chambers with slanting roofs that make a pyramid within a pyramid. Now that's going to be quite important later on. When we look at the columns that go down into the earth, and as I say, it's reported up to 2 miles deep, that's 3 kilometers for some people. At the base of those columns, you have these, what only can be described as blocks or reservoirs. Now that's going to be very important as we go forward, because these reservoirs will be feeding ultimately the technology that we find inside the pyramid. Now, as I said before, there are multitudes of things that are going on within this discovery. And because there are multitudes of things going on, it's because it's reflecting life. In reality, when you think about the world is not made up of one thing. It's not just made up of water. It's not just made up of air. It's made up of a multitude of different systems that work in symbiosis. Is it symbiosis? Is that the right word? I hope so. You'll tell me in the comments below. In synergy. There you go. In synergy with one another. So when we look at this technology, we have to look at it in the same way. We will be coming back to what they've discovered. But first of all, we need to understand how multitudes of aspects of energy that can combine all of these systems together. So what we're going to look at now is just 2 or 3 videos which you can find on YouTube. I'll put the links to those videos in the description. And we're just going to take small sections of that and see how life can be affected by multitudes of sort of things. The first video that most of us may have seen is about the connection between sound, vibration and water. Let's just have a look as this person here turns on a frequency. I've turned the sound off, but they turn on the frequency, and as they turn on the frequency, it creates the water to be coming out in a spiral effect. So as you change the effect, you can change the effect on the spiral of energy that comes out of the water. Now, this is obviously an optical illusion, but what's happening here is we are creating the living frequency within the flow of water. Here you can see that once the frequency is changed, the water appears to be moving upwards towards the original tube of water or the hose of water that's coming out of it. And it may give the sensation that these bubbles are actually moving upwards. So that's one way of influencing the flow of energy through a trickling state of water. What about a water that is suspended in midair through sound itself? This can also be seen here, where a droplet of water is placed upon a frequency pad between one and the other, and we can see that this water oscillates in different shapes and different forms. So here we have equivalent of the Star of David, the technical yin yang, and it goes through to the fourth harmonics, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. You can see this video, as I said, it will be linked in the description below. So there's a multitude of ways of actually affecting the state of water. The other thing that we should look at as well is the combination of sound to physical particles. This will become evident later on. This is what is called a cymatic experiment, where you convert vibrations into living reality. At different hertz, as you can well see, these salt crystals that are placed upon a plate, a vibrating plate, changes its form according to the hertz that is being put through the system. Now, this is going to become even more important as we go forward. So now let's start applying that physics that we said earlier on to this situation. This is a video that comes from Veritas. It is what we call a Kelvin's thunderstorm. And you can go and watch the whole video. It's fantastic, obviously. It's linked in the description below. I will just give you the glossary of what is going on. And I want you to remember those pictures that we saw earlier on with the pyramids. Now, this is where you're demonstrating to the right and to the left. You have water that is falling down through coils. Now, these coils are positively and negatively charged. And as the water goes through these coils, the charged particles are feeding one and another. So the top right hand could be negatively charged and the bottom left hand is negatively charged. So the top left is positive and the bottom right is positive. This creates actually a discharge of the magnetic field between the waters going through the coils and ultimately creating a massive spark of electricity as they go through. There is also multitudes of different effects. Here you see the spark of electricity that comes off between these two balls here for the plus and the minus. The spark of energy between these two balls creates a lot of electricity. It can't actually cause you any harm through an electrical discharge. Yes, you'll feel like a shock that goes through your system, but ultimately you will not be electrocuted because it doesn't have one thing which is really important, and that is the flow of energy. Now we can see with these positive and negative charges that come through this experiment, that as the water comes through, it gradually builds up an electrical charge, which then expands the flow of water and then reduces it during the discharge. So as this water goes through, yes, As the charge builds up, the water flow expands, and as the discharge of the electricity reduces the expansion of that water. Yes, I know it sounds complicated, but it's actually a lot simpler than we may think. If you imagine it's like a cold front that meets a hot front within the atmosphere, and that creates electrical storms. That's basically what is going on, because in a cloud, the water does that circulation, which we saw with the droplets coming through the coils. Okay, so therefore we can create an electrical discharge with water rising up and dropping, but also converting from one side to the other, negative to positive, creating that discharge. The one thing we're missing in this whole situation is the constant. Now that's where we can go back to the idea of frequency affecting the flow of water, creating those different shapes and making those sort of spiral effects. So let's go back to our pyramid and have another look at that situation. Let's just take the pyramid structure again here, and the new structures that we found that are just slightly underneath the pyramid. Okay, so here you have those spirals that go up and down these columns. These columns will have the water that comes down through the center. The spiral is the negative to positive charge that we saw, creating that explosion of energy, which is very, very powerful, but it's not so harmful simply because there's no constant flow or current that comes through that. And as it does create that discharge within those columns, that goes up to the top section where we have these new chambers where we get the switch over of energies. Now, as an energy person, I understand that when I'm looking at auras and also chakras that I can physically see, once you start playing with chakras, you can see, and I teach this in my workshops all the time, is finding the point of inversion. That is where the magic actually happens. And this is why the pyramids and so forth are placed upon either energy spots or springs of water, which create naturally that vortex energy and so forth, which creates that combination between one state and the inversion through the pyramid to another state. So what we're doing is creating a generator of electricity, the size of massive implications across multitudes of different areas of life. If you think of a nuclear power station, I personally think that probably doesn't touch the sides of what the pyramids can do. It doesn't even touch 1% of the amount of energy that you can charge and discharge through the pyramid system. So let's get back to the construction of those pyramids. And here we have here where we get just on the bottom section, the charging of the particles in through the water, and then the directional energy, which is these new chambers and these structures that they found within the pyramid themselves. Okay, so this is where we can see this a little bit closer with this one. You have at the bottom the reservoirs for the water, and you have the columns that take the water up and down and have that spiraling motion that comes with it. And as I said, there's a multitude of different systems that go into place that create the electrical discharge of the magnetic field of the Earth. Now, this is a component that we haven't talked about as yet, and we will be talking about it a little bit on Sunday because it concerns us. There is so much that we need to understand coming through this system of pyramids and what was actually created there. When we put a magnetic field, and this is where the Earth comes into it, So we're combining water, we're combining sound, we're combining the magnetics of water, the plus and the minus, to make the discharge. And now we're looking for the constant flow. And that could come through the magnetic field of the Earth. So if you imagine this is a magnetic field that goes through a pyramid, and how it changes the magnetic field around the pyramid as the energy goes through it, as the magnetic field goes through it. And look at the things that it's creating here. You know, is that not exactly the same thing that we were seeing earlier on with the salt crystals that go through the vibration on that vibrating pad as it were, on different hertz? It's exactly that. So this is not just a generator of electricity. This is also, we can fine tune this energy that's coming through the pyramid to have multitudes of different uses as it comes through. And we must understand that these magnetic fields are well known across the globe. We also have a pyramid in the UK, which is made out of chalk, alkaline. You draw the water through the alkaline. I think it's an even more primitive version of the pyramids in a way. It draws the water through the alkaline, which creates an alkaline battery, the electricity of life. Now that is going to be really important as we go forward. And once you start putting these structures and these converters of the magnetic field of the Earth into particular vortices, which you can see to this side here. This is a map I created over 20 years ago, which shows the geomagnetic lines that go across the planet. And as they go in different directions, one is coming this way, the other one is coming this way, it's creating that vortex on huge scales across the Earth, which we would call the Bermuda Triangle or the Dragon's Triangle as well in the Pacific. So we get this all over the place. And there is points of the Earth that have a far greater vibration, which I have given chakra points to, which you can see over here, which I go into on the messages to it of energy all the time. And once we have that, we must then start to realize that actually our system itself is full of combining energies like the codices, which is the staff of Hermes, and the two snakes that go up the staff, that crosses over, that creates all of those points which we call chakra points on the human energy. Now, if we have the chakra points of the Earth, we also have the generators of the pyramids as well within these structures of the energies of the Earth. Therefore, us as people, we can actually influence, like that person is turning on the frequency for the water, like Dr. Emoto. If you know anything about Dr. Emoto, please do go and have a search on Dr. Emoto on his water crystals. Absolutely amazing. Once we have an understanding of how our vortices work, our chakras and our aura system works, and this is what I teach in my workshops, once we have that, we can have an effect on the outside world around us, on other people, such as healing, such as dowsing, such as also lifting massive blocks of earth that they're just like a matchstick. There's amazing things what we can do, but it doesn't just stop there with us. It also goes into something that is far greater, which is Orion's belt and the Sirius star. Now, once we go into things like Sirius and the Orion's belt, we're also talking about Göbekli Tepe as well, which is in Turkey, etc. There's a multitude of ways of doing these structures of energy. And we will be going into that and talking about not only who built these pyramids, but for what reasons Was there a physical reason? Spiritual reason? There's a multitude of things that we need to talk about. There's a lot of questions and answers that need to be had. And I am going to be using, and this is where it could be a first on YouTube, is that tablet that I got through the Messages from Energy from the center of the earth by the Living Akashic Library, which is by the portal in the center of the earth. I will be using that tablet to explore the history. And I got a funny feeling we're going to be touching into things such as Atlantis, but we're also going to be touching into the idea of mythologies such as Thor, such as feeding the gods, as it were, with things such as sacrifices, but also other objects in order to satisfy that energy that is needed to create that discharge through the pyramid system. We're going to be talking about a lot of things and how also it can connect to you, your chakra systems, and how you can actually participate, like everybody, in co-creating through quantum mechanics the reality that we all have a common sense view on life that we wish to live. This Sunday, 9 o'clock UK time, whichever time that place it is with you, make sure you're subscribed so you can be asking questions and so forth. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things. As I've been saying all of this year and in 2024, 2025 is the year of truths. Let's do a question and answer on that. 9 o'clock UK time on this channel here, where we will be going into every aspect of the energy that concerns you, that concerns me, that concerns our history, collective, and possibly our future. I will see you soon. Thank you very much for all the support you give to this channel. In the meantime, don't forget, life should be fun, so please do enjoy.